It's really good for defining eyes and lips, makeup in general, making little highlight in the middle. If you add a highlight in the middle of the eyelid and a highlight on the edges, then you'll get a really sense of perspective of depth. It's like when applying makeup. Yeah, since I'm a girl, I know these things. Darker on the edges, light underneath the eyebrow, light over the nose and the forehead and the cheeks and the chin. So I always thought that makeup artists would make great retouches. They already know what they have to fix. Because the biggest problem when retouching, well, not actually problem, but the hardest thing is to know what to do and to know what is going to look good and what is not going to look good. And it's always personal preferences. Retouchers make aesthetic decisions all the time with every single stroke, and a retoucher who makes no artistic or aesthetic decisions, in my opinion, is not a good retoucher. A retoucher that gets all the guidance from his or her clients is not a good retoucher. Basically, one needs to make all the choices and at least be able to make all the choices by and preserving the photographer's or the client's view. So this is a great example for those get it right in camera purists. There is no way that you can take or have complete control over every single shadow and highlight of your image to make it perfect from the camera. And I've yet to see an editorial published in a magazine and retouch. Still fixing little details that I missed before. And besides, what I'm doing now, this torching and burning, was done on the darkroom too. I'm against purists. Again, you haven't, in case you haven't noticed. And ironically, I'm a purist with Photoshop. I don't use actions or outside filters or plugins. See, this is how my mask looks by now. Darken, and this is the before and after. What do you think? Neat. I'm not done yet, but close enough. It gets easier with time. More practice is faster dodging and burning, especially if no one's watching you and you're not recording yourself. In my opinion, dodging and burning is the second most important part of the process, the first being raw conversion, because basically you get the tones and exposure and your working file from the raw, and then all the final adjustments in lights and shadows and texture are done with dodge and burn. So to me, raw conversion and dodging and burning are the two most important steps in a beauty retouch. As you can see, when dodging and burning, you're also adding local contrast. I could have used high pass to sharpen that ear, or the edges or the mouth or the eyes, but by painting light and shadow, you're also enhancing the contrast. But you decide where and how much. So it's more subtle. And subtlety in beauty retouch is everything. Let's make this highlight even brighter. I really like that highlight. Yeah, let's make the highlights shiny. I can even add a little bit of backlight. Too much. That's a really strong light. Let me fix that. There we go. Way too much. The opacity and the size of the brush is completely depends on the image and the area you're working on. So there's no better way of learning that trial and error. If you darken the edges of your eyeball and then lighten the middles, you get a really nice shape. Because the mind understands that if something is lighter, then it's nearer, and if something is darker, it's farther away. So by doing that, you're adding a three-dimensional feel to the image. Everything that's closer is lighter. See? It needs some more light in the middle. Like I said, the hardest part in retouching is knowing when to stop. I turned the eye help on because I couldn't tell exactly where I needed more light. So the increased contrast is going to help me see where it needs more light or more shadow. There we go. So again, we start with the small details and then you zoom out and keep going on the big and middle details until you get to the big highlights and shadows and contrast of the general image. Making the edges darker. There, see how I changed the light of the image almost completely. Because lighting actually helps the things you want to pop. Too much light here. In this area I was really concentrated on the small things, on the small details, and I couldn't actually see these bumps. I get ask usually about bumps in legs or arms, and this is the best way of dealing with bumps. And if it's a fashion image and you're not gonna print it huge, then the high pass is really good for bumps in the arms or the legs of the models. This for fashion. There's not usually a lot of see, before and after. I'm not just doing it for you, the before and after. I usually do it myself to actually remember what the original looked like and to know that I'm not going too far. Yeah, in this case, I don't have a client to compliment me, so I have to do it myself. Good job, Natalia. You're doing great. Everyone's insecure in somewhere, some way. just just some final touches.